#1 of the worst albums of 2022. You should know this already. Like, this is the most embarrassing album of the year.
Hey, bro, come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Yo, what up? It's your boy Black with Black TV. We'll give you reviews and hip-hop news. And today, I'm gonna be telling you my top 5, that's right, top 5 best and worst albums of 2022. But first, don't forget to hit subscribe to Black TV for more reviews, more reactions. Hit that like button, and in the comment section below, tell me what it was your best and your worst album of 2022. So going into this list, just letting you know, this is just my opinion. And no, I haven't heard every album that came out this year. I haven't. But these are just my personal picks of worst and best albums that I actually like of 2022. That means it's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So first, let's go ahead and start off with my top worst albums of 2022. Yes, I know I haven't really did this in a long time on this channel, so I said it's the end of the year. Why not? Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna start off with my honorable mention. At the top of the worst honorable mention is Glorilla. Anyways, life is great. The reason I got this as an honorable mention as one of the worst albums of 2022 is because I'm not really gonna say this is the worst album. It's like, this isn't my cup of tea. I'm not the demographic she's really aiming for by making this album. And plus, I will say she has the best song of 2022 with FNN on the album, on EP, whatever you want to call it. It's the most popular song, but by this EP, I can't really get into it. And I just don't like her delivery of her voice on the album. And it's like she's basically going towards ratchet females, like saying you don't need no nigga, just go ahead. And she got some inspirational stuff on her too, like on track 1, Normal Love, she's saying a couple of inspirational stuff, but it just isn't for me. You would never catch me riding down the street listening to Glorilla. I'm just saying, even though I like her friends stuff, like, you know, Gloss Up and stuff like that, I'm just not gonna really listen to this. Coming in at number 5 on my top worst albums of 2022, this album I was really hyped up about. Like, out of all the albums on these lists, this has to be the most disappointing album I have ever heard. Yes, and if you know me, you already know exactly what I'm about to say. Heroes and Villains by Metro Boomin. This album right here should have been the best production album of 2022, but this album fell flat right on its face, bro. Like, it only had really 6 to 7 features on this album. The beats was okay. This beats was mid, but it sounded like a bunch of throwaway instrumentals on the album. And even the features that's on the album didn't make sense. Like, just for example, on track 2, Superhero is a Future and Chris Brown song. Now, on paper, you will say this song is going to sound incredible, but Chris Brown only had two bars at the end of the album. And Don Toliver was all over this album. I really don't like Don Toliver. I'm not a fan of Don Toliver. This album was very mid, but overall, it's the most disappointing album of 2022. Coming in at number 4, I always give this guy some hard criticism every time he comes out with an album, but this album is better than his last albums, but that's a lot to say. God did by DJ Khaled. Now, once again, I'm expecting this album to fall flat on its face just because of everybody that's on the album. He has a star-studded list of rappers and R&B artists on his album. They always fall on their face. But the reason I really dislike this album is because, like, you had a Lil Baby and Drake single on this album, and that song actually fell flat on his face. Staying Alive should have been a hit, but you had Lil Baby actually trying to sing on the song. No, that didn't work. Out of 18 songs on this album, only 3 of them was good. And it's just crazy to me that you had artists from Drake, Kanye West, Future, Nardo Wick, SZA, and only 3 songs was actually great. Not even great, just good. So yeah, of course, DJ Khaled is on this list. Coming in at number 3 is another album that actually had high expectations, but this really fell flat on its face, and I'm kind of disappointed at the fallout of the group that they actually had. Only Built for Infinity Links by Quavo and Takeoff. Now, rest in peace, Takeoff. This will be actually his last album that he actually put out. But this album was actually formed after the fallout of Quavo and Takeoff and Offset. And they actually just wanted to move forward and kind of piece away from Offset after the fallout. This album had a bunch of mid music on it. Like, I was actually excited to actually get a Quavo and Takeoff album, but it just seems like it's just a bunch of mid songs and side songs thrown on here. Now, Hotel Lobby was actually a good single, but with that having high expectations going into this album, like, everything actually sounded the same. And they had an NBA YoungBoy feature on here, and even that song fell flat. And anytime you have a Birdman song featured on your album, that's automatically gonna make the album bad, because why would you? I mean, I know you kind of paying homage to Birdman in the whole Cash Money era, but that song just actually fell flat. So yeah, 3, Quavo Takeoff. Sorry, Takeoff. Now, coming in at number 2 is one of the best artists out right now. And, you know, I kind of commend him for actually doing something brand new in his artistic crafts. Honestly, Nevermind by Drizzy Drake. Now, I actually like Drake. And I commend him for making a dance hall album. But when actually the rollout of this album, it was just a surprise and it just popped up. And even though it's a trilogy of 3 albums and it's the mid album, like, a dance hall album, Drake, really? I kind of know that you like island music, but once again, I commend you for stepping out of your lane and trying something new as one of the biggest artists in the game and making a dancehall album. But you really could have just kept this to yourself, hence the album name, honestly, Nevermind. The only good song to me on this album was actually track 13, Liability. And I kind of like Jimmy Cooks with the Player Fly sample on it. But overall, everybody was actually expecting this to be a great rap album, surprise album, but everybody was disappointed and the expectation fell flat on top of terrible dance music. So yeah, number 2 is honestly Nevermind by Drizzy Drake. And at number 1 of the worst albums of 2022, I'm gonna go ahead. You should know this already. Like, this is the most embarrassing album of the year. Drillmatic by The Game. Not only on top of having a terrible, horrible Eminem diss track, you had 29 tracks of nothing at all. And you had a Drake skit to where Drake actually put you to the side to where he didn't want to make a song with you. On top of that embarrassment, I think overall in the hip hop community would say that this album is actually super terrible. Like, he has a bunch of star-studded features, a terrible Eminem diss that fell flat, which in argument, I think that's really a great Eminem parody song, and a bunch of terrible Kanye production on this album. This is the most embarrassing album on top of worst albums of 2022. So yeah, number one, The Game, Drillmatic. Now it's time to get in the best albums of 2022. The best albums, I think, in my opinion, that I actually think are good. That these, like I said before, I haven't heard all albums overall, but these are my top 5 lists. But first, let's go ahead and get into my honorable mention of the best album of 2022 is King Disease 3 by Nas. Now, actually, the reason why I made this an honorable mention because I actually like King Disease 1 and 2. King Disease 1 won a best rap album of that year, and King Disease 2, you know, it was alright. But King Disease 3 actually brought the same intensity as all the other 2 albums. And in that argument, I think this is the best out of the 3. So if you actually like Nas, Nas lovers will love this album. The production was pretty good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Nas actually kept that consistency. Yeah, that's the word, consistency. So number 5 is one of my best albums of 2022. Is actually a guy. I mean, the album kinda didn't meet my expectations, but it hit to what I actually expected at the same time, if that makes sense. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar. What I actually like about this album is it's Kendrick being Kendrick. He brought exactly what I expected, but in a sense, I was actually expecting something different because he's been gone for so long that we've been actually waiting for an album. And for him to bring the same stuff, it's kind of like a good thing and a bad thing. One of the couple of favorite tracks I actually like on here is track 5, Father Time, and We Cry Together. Like, I have never heard anything like that to where a couple is actually arguing back and forth and the rhyme schemes is good. And it actually brings a realism to it. And Kendrick always hits on that mark when he does his album. So yeah, number 5, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Coming in at number 4 is this artist actually kind of grew on me. Like, this is my first time actually hearing a full project from this artist, and you know, this was kind of a breath of fresh air as far as metaphors and lyricism, what he brings to the table. Is number 4, The Forever Story by J.I.D. The number one thing that I actually enjoyed about this album is how his rhyme schemes is, and the actual collabs he did on this album. In a sense, it kind of reminded me of Baby Keem a little bit, but the difference is with this album is like the context of each song he put in here. It doesn't sound like it's actually remixed or refurbished from another artist. It sounds very fresh and very brand new, and it's actually what hip hop actually should be like. So this album right here was a breath of fresh air in my opinion. The West Side Story, The Forever Story, J.I.D. That's my number 4. Now number 3, this guy right here has been on fire for the past few years, and this album right here was actually number 1 for 6 or 7 months until later on in that year. It's Almost Dry by Pusha T. What made this album actually great is the production and Pusha T metaphors. Like, you know, we know Pusha is rapping like he's been a drug kingpin all his life, but we know we know he's not. But when he actually brings that on the album, it's kind of realism, and the production from Kanye, and just how everything was meshed together on this album. And the album really isn't that long. It's just 12 tracks of flame. And in a long time, this is the best that we ever had. And I've been listening to this for a long time. So yeah, this will be my number 3 album of the year. It's Almost Dry by Pusha T. Coming in at number 2, yeah, this guy has been beat up. This guy been picked on by academics. This guy kind of had a very rough year. But this album right here is undeniably in everybody's top 5 best albums of the year. And I'm gonna have to say it. So Separately with Freddie Gibbs. This album had great transitions, great metaphors, great context in his songs, and all his collabs actually sounded good, especially with track 5 Too Much with Moneybagg Yo. That's kind of a weird combination, but he actually chose it to be a single, and it actually sounded pretty good. And he has a song with DJ Paul, track 10 PYS, and DJ Paul did the production on it, and that was surprisingly well. Like, this right here, in my opinion, should be nominated for the rap album of the year, but you know, that's just my opinion. Like, I think this is the best hip-hop album of the year, in my opinion. So yeah, Freddie Gibbs, so Separately. And coming in at number 1 of my favorite album of 2022, yes, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, man. The Toxic King himself, Future, I Never Liked You. When this album came out, it's like it had no skips. This is the Future album that I have been begging for forever. It's like it has a nice mixture of his R&B type side and his trap side put together. Like, all the best parts of each side put together in this album. And me personally, I think Wait For You with Drake is the second best song of 2022. And he got Love You Better on this, man. But like, you can't tell me Love You Better isn't in your top 5 best songs of 2022. Even he had great production by Kanye West on Keep It Burning. I'm not saying this album is actually perfect, but me personally, I think this album with 22 tracks is very unskippable. It's very unskippable. So yes, number 1 album in my opinion is Future, I Never Liked You. So that's my top 5 worst and best albums of 2022. But the most important question is, what is your list? Put that in the comment section below and let me know, what do you actually agree with me on? What am I crazy about? What do you agree with me on these lists? Put that in the comment section below. Hit that like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Add me on all social media. Black Music, BLACMUZIC. And until next time, I holla. Next time on Black TV.